Hello everybody and welcome to our live crystal Q&A with the Ascension Toolkit.
Good evening. Hello.
So lovely to have you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not familiar with us individually, if you just work with us, just have come to us through the toolkit rather than our own individual things, my name is David Essery.
I'm Tim Wild.
So we are the creators of the Ascension Toolkit. We're really looking forward to the opportunity to just connect with you guys tonight, talk to you a little bit about our exciting news that we've got, and then really dive into some of your questions about crystals.
And there have been a lot of questions.
So first of all, thank you so much to everybody that submitted a question. There has been an amazing number of them. Unfortunately, more than we'll get through in one night, but we are reviewing them as well. And, as I was just saying, we can make updates to the Ascension Toolkit to add more stuff in. And we want to do this more regularly anyway. So
we do.
We'll come back and round out and things.
Because this is the joyful part of it, where we get to interact, and we, like David was just saying, we get to review almost where everybody is and get an idea and a bead and a perspective on the questions that are being asked, the energies that are floating around, the way that they are affecting each and every one of us, really. Oh, nearly went off. It's a live recording, anything can happen. So that's kind of where we are with it. And we have had so many questions tonight that we probably aren't going to be even able to get close to answering all of them. But what we would like to say is that there are quite a bulk of questions that can actually be answered by the crystal module that we are introducing tonight. So it's what we've done is we've picked the questions that are going to be actually have really affected both David and I on our ascension pathway, things that would not normally be answerable via a textbook or any other means. You have to personally experience them yourself. So
that's it. So we'll dive into your questions very, very shortly. We just want to talk to you very briefly first about our exciting news, because we're really, really thrilled to be able to announce, as Tim says, that we are now releasing our second module to the Ascension Toolkit, all about crystals, unsurprisingly. So a lot of you, thank you so much, have purchased the main module for the Ascension Toolkit, which was all about energy, what it is, personal energy management, the Ascension, and kind of everything that you really need to know to become a master of your energy. So thank you so much to everybody that's signed up, and for all the wonderful feedback that we've had. It's been amazing. So thank you for that. But our goal with the Ascension Toolkit was always to create, as we say, these modules. So the idea is that we can create little individual releases of different types of content about different subjects. And then you guys can come on and you can pick and choose what it is that you want to learn about and just grab the modules that you want.
Yes.
So, as I say, we've got the existing one about energy management, and we are very excited to say that by the end of the session tonight, we will launch it officially. At the end, we have a new crystal module available.
We'll be pressing the magic button.
We will be. That's it.
That's the exciting part, isn't it? That's it. It's all live.
I love it. So the way crystals is something that Tim and I are both very passionate about. I mean, we're sitting here both with one in our hand again. We absolutely love them, and our experience has come for both of us individually very much through a life experience, this time working with them intuitively and learning and practicing, and through past life knowledge, particularly from kind of Atlantis and other eras that have inspired us, and memories of how they were used in the past. And what we wanted to do with this Ascension Toolkit module is really kind of break down the kind of, I guess, some of the misconceptions, I think, about crystals.
The complexities.
That's a better way of saying it. Thank you, Tim. Because I think, a lot of people do approach it from, it's quite complicated way, and you have to have all this training, and you've got to do all these different things and stuff like that.
Paper for it.
Yeah. But you know what? The biggest crystal masters that we have on this planet are children.
Yeah.
And you know what? And the reason why is because they have no rules. They don't play by a playbook, and they just use their intuition.
They do.
And they're just guided through it. They just pick them up and they do whatever they feel like doing with them. And that is the ultimate premise behind working with crystals. And that's what we're kind of really trying to instill throughout this process. The module kind of includes a lot of information, about what crystals are and the history of them in Atlantis and stuff like that, and some of the common uses of them. And we include some guidelines on how to do them, how to grid them, how to program, how to record, all of these different really useful, how to cleanse them, all these really useful kind of day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the most powerful thing you have is your intuition. And just tap it to your third eye and away you go.
That's it. And rock and roll.
That's it. And really learning to trust, as with everything, crystals is exactly the same. Exactly the same with the personal management stuff, with your living your day-to-day life, living your ascension process, whatever it is that you're doing. It's just about following your own guidance and learning to trust yourself, and then just really practice. Just do that. And the more you work with crystals, the more in tune that you will become, the more you will flow.
That's exactly it. Now, simplicity is key. Okay, what you will notice for those of you that embark on working with the module that David and I have created is that we have taken what can be very complicated subjects because it can seem overwhelming. I mean, if say for the sake of example, you walk into a crystal shop, you will be almost overwhelmed by what you are presented with. How do you choose your crystal? What are you being guided to? Or what colour does what? What name is this? What meaning is that? And ultimately, the way we're looking at it is that there is very little relevance into overcomplicating how you work with crystals. So David and I are explaining what I have found and what David has found to be the easiest route to working with them, based on not only what we have learnt during this incarnation, but what we're also recalling from our previous incarnations. Because a lot of the crystal memories that you and I have, all of us together, will be based from Lemuria, because a lot of you were crystal masters in Lemuria. And if you're not one yourself, you'll probably know somebody who is. There was a lot of us that spent time during that very beautiful era, but also going into Atlantis, which required the physical application of crystal technology to the planet that we now live on. So all of this kind of got lost in the fall, in the mists of time, in not so much lost, but was stored away at a higher frequency, so people couldn't misuse it and couldn't re-access it again until the vibration had raised high enough. Now it has raised high enough, and we are beginning to re-access our previous wisdom, our gifts, and our knowledge. Now, the key to that is working with crystals. It's as simple as that. When we extend further into the higher realms than we would be able to do normally, we give ourselves a huge advantage. And as Saint Germain said in that quote, which I'm going to read again for those of you that probably joined a little bit, I'll just repeat again what Saint Germain said about crystals to me in 2014. And it was wonderful to see that he's joining us tonight. This is the card that David and I put. I've always got to get it the right way up.
There you go.
Transmutation, but just the fact that he is joining us tonight. And the words that he said were, without crystals, the ascension process of Earth would be 10 or more years behind its current trajectory. So crystals are as essential to light workers as the sun itself, and they provide human souls with the capacity to reach further and higher than their vessels should allow. So that means that we are still in limited form, but we have the ability to reach higher because of the assistance of crystals. So crystals are an anchor point and an expansion for all divine energies coming in from the cosmos. And this includes all the illumined beings of light from the higher realms. So he said it all in one paragraph, that without he's not saying that we wouldn't have made any progress without crystals, but they are here to give us a huge advantage. We are physically working with them in the way that we are in order to move as swiftly through this particular period of time as possible. Interesting stuff.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, essentially what a crystal, on an energetic level, the way that we work with them, they amplify energy. That's what they do, and that's why we use them in electronics as well. Not just on a metaphysical level. We physically use them in electronics, in computers, in plug sockets, watches, all sorts of things, because they amplify energy. You put a current through it, and it comes out stronger the other side. And it's exactly the same with us. As soon as we start working with a crystal, it raises our vibration, it increases our energy, and as St. Germain says, it allows us to bridge into other vibrations that are higher for us. It makes it easier for us to connect with the angels, with the ascended masters, the dragons, unicorns, whatever it's going to do. It's just going to heighten your experience. And really, so much of our connection that we have with crystals happens on a subtle subconscious vibration. Yeah. You can connect with a crystal just simply by sitting and holding it.
Yeah. In fact, that's the best thing that you can possibly do.
Yeah. That's it. And I think, sometimes we kind of have these life-changing experiences when we hold them and stuff like that. And it's often not the way, we don't always have a massive feeling. Like we were talking about this before we started, and it's kind of in relation to someone's question, so we might round back on it later. Yeah. But this particular crystal that's my absolute favourite that I always use, if I sit and hold it, I don't generally feel that much from it. I don't have like this crazy, some
epiphany.
People, some people say they pick up moldavite and they have heart palpitations and all of these different things. When I hold this crystal, it doesn't blow me away or anything like that. For a fact that if I sit down and write without it, and I sit down and write with it, the difference in the quality, the quantity, and the ease that I receive information is vast. It's working at a very, very subtle level at all times.
Absolutely.
And that'll be the same, if you've just got them in your house, if they're just holding space for you, whether you're connecting with them consciously or not, they are always going to be having that effect.
And what type of crystal is that?
You're going to be doing that just because I forgot the name of it before I came in and you're doing it to it again.
It's Danburite.
Danburite. Thank you very much. It's completely gone out of my head today.
As inevitably it does.
Yeah.
It's so, to explain in simple terms what this crystal is doing with David would be, when he's holding it, his connection in this channel is very, very strong. It widens the channel. It enables David to receive more information in a vast and more expanded form than it would be if he was not holding it. That's a simple operation. That doesn't need to be complicated. Yeah. It is the way that David works with that particular crystal. And I receive a very similar set of protocols when I'm using this crystal. This is my Lemurian. And so when I am writing, I have this particular crystal in my pocket. If I'm driving anywhere, I carry it with me. I haven't allocated this crystal any specific tasks. It simply stays with me. Okay, so when you're working with a crystal, it will widen your capacity. It will enable you to receive more at a higher frequency level. You might not be having this incredible, colourful, angel-filled epiphany that a lot of people actually sometimes expect when they pick a crystal up.
Yeah, that's it. So really, on a day-to-day basis, and I think that's kind of our goal with this module of the toolkit is to enable people to make crystals more a part of their day-to-day life, just as it was in Atlantis. Their entire structure was really based around crystals, to the point that they were using them as light bulbs. They could physically hold a crystal and light it up without connecting it to any power source or anything like that. It would illuminate. So they used them as their light sources, completely clean energy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg on what you can do with crystals, and it was part of their day-to-day life. We're not there yet, but we will be. But as we're going through this incredible ascension process, through this transformation and everything, they will help us just simply by being with them. But if you focus your intent through the techniques that we teach through this module, through programming, through grids, through all these different things, you can amplify that even further if you wish to.
If you look at where we're going on the ascension process, on this entire ascension pathway, we are taking an Atlantean trajectory. So the entire ascension process that we're moving through at the moment is adhering to an outline or a set of energy protocols called the Atlantean Ascension Gold Print. Now, this Atlantean Ascension Gold Print was written in the 1,500-year period, which was known as Golden Atlantis. This was during the Atlantean heyday, when there was an incredible amount, just an abundance of crystal knowledge. Like David said, they were using it for light, heat, transportation, storage, communication. Their knowledge was gifted from the stars, and it was also information that they found out via working with crystals themselves. Now, when we move into the later dates, at the moment we're still in the transitional period, we will be receiving more and more information back that will be supporting moving into this Atlantean gold print, which is quite incredible, really, if you think about what we're doing, as we are retrieving archived information as we're going along, and we're putting it into the use. We're putting it into use. And it's a bit-by-bit process. It's not like we're going to be given all of this all at once. It is going to come back to us as our consciousness level rises sufficiently to match the frequency at which the information was placed away.
That's it.
Interesting.
We've got fascinating times ahead of us.
Yeah, we have got fascinating times ahead of us, haven't we?
So, we kind of we started diving into all sorts of information.
We have started diving in, haven't we? as inevitably that we do.
To be honest, whenever we start talking about something we're passionate about, we always will go off on one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Ascension Toolkit module is there. It will be released by the end of the night, and hopefully, it will really help kind of enable you to work with crystals on a day-to-day basis in a more easy, fluid, and natural, intuitive way. That's really our goal with it.
Confidence.
That's it.
The ultimately, what I've seen, particularly over the years, is people picking up crystals and not knowing what to do with them. And conscious level, people, I don't know what to do. I could pick this up and go, what do I do with that? It's a crystal. It looks pretty. It feels nice in my hand. I have a terrible addiction with them anyway, sort of thing. But ultimately, one of the first questions was, well, what do I do with this crystal? How's it working for me? And then I was introduced to an incredible field of information, most of which was unhelpful, because I was taking all of this in and I wasn't listening to my own intuition. Okay, so when the simplicity of what we are presenting with the work that David and I have brought through together is about refining your process and being confident with what you are using, because if you are overburdened with information and different ways to do it and how to do it and what it's supposed to be doing and what you're not receiving, then immediately you're going to be having what would be an unfulfilling experience. So it's down to each and every one of us using crystals to become attuned to the way in which they communicate with us, because everybody's different.
That's it. Everyone will have their own unique experience with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I will just say, one thing the toolkit module is an A to Z of crystals,
No.
because there are tons of resources out there that are absolutely fantastic. So if you want to dive into the specific properties for particular crystals, there's loads of really great books. There's online resources for these
Crystal
things.
Bibles, and what each type of crystal does, whether it's Atlantean, whether it's Lemurian, whether it's this is where things become very heady, I find, and energetically, it's for me, it's always detracted a little bit from the process of just using the crystal and tuning into what it has, what gifts it has, what information it has, what companionship. In many cases, people connect with crystals and they find a friendship because the crystal has connected them to a source of energy or light which they were struggling to tune into previously. And sometimes that's exactly what we need.
That's it. Should we dive into some questions?
Let's
We'll round back
dive
on
into some
toolkit
questions.
again a little bit at the end. Cool.
Yeah.
So should we just start at the top of the list? We've highlighted a number. We will see how many we get through tonight. But there's some amazing questions here, so we'll try through as many.
Brilliant ones, actually. Yeah.
So this is an interesting one. How to remove old programming from a crystal and how to program one. I.e., if I purchase a crystal, what steps or actions should I make?
Good question, and that comes from Henrika. Thank you, Henrika, for sending that in. It's removing an old programming from a crystal. If you've received a crystal and you want to remove the old program, you have to assume first that it might have actually belonged to somebody else who programmed it. Because
consciously or subconsciously.
Consciously or subconsciously. So in many cases, when you receive a crystal, the first thing to do is bond with it. Okay, so when you bond with it, you hold it, you attune it to your energy, hold it over your heart. I tend to spend a lot of time with crystals that I'm working with to connect with them as deeply as possible. But to remove programming, you would communicate specifically with the crystal diva, and you would ask for anything that had been put into the crystal previously that was not useful for you specifically, or below the benchmark of polarity, i.e. a negative or a dense vibration. And you cleanse this out with, say, the violet flame. You use the violet flame, or you call in Archangel Gabriel, or you simply use your words and intention to remove the program. Because once you are connected to your crystal, it will pretty much do what you're asking it to do. But the first thing that you do is set its energy. Now, this is something that we do cover in the module, but I think it's important to talk about. When you get your hands upon a crystal, okay, that crystal is capable of receiving all of the information around it. So set it as a benchmark of fifth dimensional energy so that it no longer takes on lower frequencies. Very important. It's the first thing that I do with all of my crystals is set it so it does not pick up. Because let's be honest about this, everybody. Like, we all have bad days, don't we? We don't all float around in a fifth dimensional bubble of wisdom and gold, heart-centered goldness. Sometimes we have crappy days.
Yeah. That's part of this process. We're meant to have rubbish days to help us learn and grow to go through this process. Yeah.
So on those particular days, particularly if you might have trodden on a bit of Lego or been bitten by the neighbour's cat or something like that, and you have a sweary moment or something, you wouldn't want your crystal picking up that experience. So you just set the benchmark of energy. And then that crystal is serving you at fifth dimensional capacity. Okay. And that eliminates pretty much the requirements that you might feel that you need to have to cleanse your crystal all the time. Okay, so a lot of people, if you've taken your crystals, say, I mean, I travel through the airport with my crystals, but because I've worked with them and I've set them at a frequency, they don't pick up the majority of what you would not want them to pick up in an airport. They're fine, they're cool. Everything is still shining as brightly at the other end as it was at the beginning of the journey. And all you need to do is sit there with your crystal, with your eyes closed, over your heart, and you ask it to hold that frequency. It is so.
You just literally say, from this point onwards, ask that you only hold an energy from a fifth dimensional frequency and above.
Yeah.
And if you are holding anything less, please let go of it.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, and you know, we right, and we think, you know, that's a bit of stone or rock or downright, or, you know, glass, or, you know, our conscious minds that are kind of programmed, for want of a better word, to be in this material, physical world around us, see things as solid objects. But this is alive, just like a plant is alive, or a tree is alive. And there is essentially an elemental being that has bonded with this crystal, formed a relationship, and it's basically inhabiting the crystal, and it will respond when you communicate with it. And that is the basis of working with the crystal. Treat it as if you are working with an angel or an ascended master or whatever. It is a living being. And you just have to communicate with it. They are beings of service, again, just like the angels. They are here to assist us and to help us. And if you ask them for something, they will do it. You know, obviously, if you're asking something positive, you know, they're going to do it. So, and that is kind of the fundamental basis of all of this. If you want to do something, just ask it, even if you don't know if it's possible or anything like that. You know, you can always ask for under the law of grace. If you're not sure whether it's the right thing to do, you can ask for it to be done under the law of grace, so it's for the highest good of you and for the crystal. And just ask, use your imagination, go wild with it. You know, because that's how we have breakthroughs. That's how we discover new things.
It's expanding the powers of the imagination.
That's it. You know, it's the same with crystal grids and stuff like that. You know, we've seen a couple of questions. You know, can you use a crystal grid for this? Can you do a crystal grid for that? Just do it. If you want to do it, if the ideas come to you to do it, just do it.
Absolutely. That's such an important point, because, again, in many cases that we are limited by our own perceptions of what we should or shouldn't be doing. And as David said at the start, refer to how children work with crystals. A child's not thinking about what it should or shouldn't be doing with crystal, it just does. And I've watched children construct really powerful grids from either crystals that are lying around or pieces of the land, stones from the beaches, from the local area, and they just go with whatever their intuition is guiding them. That's what crystals are asking us to do, to take the kind of like the man-made construction out of our mind and replace it with the heart-centered flow of creation that we see when children are working with crystals.
That's it. And you don't need anything crazy fancy to do that as well with grids. You know, we often think we need these big pieces, like massive bits of quartz and stuff like that. You know, you can do it with anything. Anything holds energy, absolutely anything. Wood, metal, glass, it all holds some vibration. Crystals are particularly good at it and will hold a higher vibration, which is why crystals are so great. But, you know, you can use flowers. All these things have got an energy, and they will add to the overall construction of the grid. But they don't even need to be big. So this particular module of the toolkit has got a number of videos that we've included. We've filmed us talking, working with crystals and building grids, and Tim built 3 beautiful examples of crystal grids. The first 2 were quite big pieces, quite big bits of quartz and unicorns and stuff like that, and they were absolutely amazing. And then we built a small one using one of my 6x4 prints, just a very small picture, and a couple of tiny shards of quartz that were probably about that tall by about that wide, absolutely minute. And we used I can't remember exactly how many, like 4 or
I think, yeah,
maybe
four,
a centerpiece or
5
something like
or
that.
something like
Very,
that.
very small amount. You know, you can pick up these little bits of quartz for like £1 each or something like that. Really, really low investment. And if I recall, you acted it to the Arcturus.
That's right.
And you would not believe the energy in the room. By the time we finished it, Tim and I were sweating. We opened up the window, go outside for a minute. It was unbelievable.
It was boiling in here, wasn't it? It really was. I suddenly thought, is it me?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, then at the end of it, like, we're both like, like absolutely cooked, aren't we? It's brilliant.
The energy was incredible, and that was by far, in terms of from a financial standpoint, and the investment in the parts was the simplest by a long way.
Sometimes it's the way it is, isn't it?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
So it's just about your intention that you put into it, really.
Yeah, it is. Everything is intention.
Yeah.
Okay, everything that we're going through on this planet at the moment, everything that we are traversing on the ascension process is fueled by our intention, because intention precedes manifestation. So if you're using your intention to place your energy into a crystal, the crystal is it's part of the spark of the manifestation that you are beginning with the creation process. So your intention, whatever is coming from your heart, from your mind, the union of all of that positive energy that's flowing around you, but what you actually want will be expressed via the crystal.
That's it. And amplified.
And amplified.
Which is why they're so powerful.
Very much so.
Should we pick another question? Do you want to pick one this time? Or?
Yeah, so this is from Rahul. Thank you for sending this in, because this is important and this happens all the time.
And quite a few people answered this question actually as well. What
does it mean when crystals break whilst wearing them or just slipping from the hands? Now, it's always a sad moment when our crystals decide to do that. I mean, I've got multiple, like countless breakages in my crystal history, and one of the ones that I remember the most was I fell asleep while meditating. We've all done it, haven't we? You know, like, I'll just close my eyes and have a little meditate. And in actual fact, it's just an excuse for a nap, isn't it? And I had my citrine ankh, which I owned at the time, down my top because I knew that they do tend to escape. And I went out like a light, and I was out for about a good hour. And when I woke up, I was like, I forgot completely that the ankh was down my top, and it slipped down my top and it shattered into 1,000 pieces on the floor. No retrieval. There's nothing to be retrieved from this. It was just full breakage. And the information that I got was, yes, okay, I'd been forgetful, but these crystals choose specifically when they are going to go and what they are doing, okay? Our perception of crystals as being an inanimate object are very... that is an incorrect perception. They are highly conscious and very aware of what they're doing. And in most cases, the crystal will choose you. So it's choosing its pathway, where it's going to be going. And if a crystal breaks, in many cases, it's because it's the end of its contract with a person, okay, with you. Or it might have taken on an energy that was designated, which you would have received, but you didn't because the crystal took it for you, in which case sometimes they get so full up or there's nothing more that they can particularly do, and they break. So it does happen. It's sad. Sometimes things, you can't always rule out the law of accidents. You know, accidents happen. But in many cases there have been, people will say, this crystal leapt from my hand. It literally suddenly grew. It was like a Mexican jumping bean or something. And like leapt from my hand into the place where it broke into 1,000 pieces. And they do this. It's a conscious action. So it's the end of its contract with you if your crystal has done that. Don't think that it's something that you've done, because it won't be. It's something that has occurred in your energy fields, and most of the time it's because the crystal has taken it away. You would have received it otherwise. So they serve us in this capacity as well.
Yeah, and if it is something you've done, it's because you've done something right. You have completed your mission that you and this crystal shared, and you completed it, and you no longer needed it.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. They may, depending on the energies that they've taken on, stuff like that, they may decide to break, which actually releases the elemental in the process. Or you may just pick up a crystal one day and go, you know what, it's not mine anymore. It needs to go.
It's moving on.
And you find you need to have find a new keeper for it, or maybe return it to the earth or something like that, where it can go and rest and regenerate until maybe it's ready for a new mission at some point down the line. Absolutely. It does happen. It does happen.
I think this also includes, and I've just seen Liz asking the question, what if a chip occurs on your crystal? Because we discussed this, didn't we, before we went live?
Else asked that as well.
It all depends on how big the chip is. Because you can have, say, my crystal and I might chip a little bit off the tip of it. It happens. That will not affect the serving or the working capacity of my crystal. If I broke the top of it off, yes, it would. It would make a significant difference in the way that the crystal was probably feeling and the way that the crystal would hold energy. So chips and travel damage and the other kind of stuff, don't worry about it. It's sometimes there's a lot of charm to a crystal that looks like it's been loved and carried a long way. I've got a golden healer Lemurian, which is at home, and over the course of the last 4 years or so, it's picked up a good 4 dings. And this is where it's fallen off the bed in the night, or I've dropped it. These things happen, and no, it doesn't affect the energy.
They're often referred to as wounded warriors, aren't they?
Wounded warriors, that's a good one. Yeah.
But again, just as the crystal can choose to break and release, it can choose to do that to, in some way, alter its structure for its purpose.
Absolutely.
To alter the way it acts in some way for the next phase of its journey. Yeah. So, and in truth, if you pick up a crystal, if I look at this, for instance, if I was thinking, should it be a perfect geometric form? It's not. No. It's got grooves, it's got divots, it's got chips that happened when it came out of the earth, or even when it was still in the earth. It doesn't change the ability of this crystal and how amazing it is. It's life. We've all got a few chips and dings.
Yeah, and what happens. Yeah, we get dinged on the pathway, don't we?
That's it, and it makes us stronger.
It does. It makes us a lot stronger. And what you should, and this just kind of this probably covers another question. Oops, the iPad's gone off.
Sorry.
It also covers another question that has been asked: is what do you do with a crystal that's been irretrievably broken? I always put mine either at the base of a tree, in the ground, actually physically buried, or in flowing water. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's and a lot of the time, just listen to what your crystal is asking, because it will ask you to not dispose of it, but lay it to rest in whatever way is most suited for it. I always find that running water, placing them in a stream or a river, and just allow them to cleanse themselves and just go about the next phase of their existence.
Amen to that.
Absolutely.
I just want to tack on to the end of that. We had another brilliant question that inspired some conversations between us.
Yes.
From Kevin Sue, who said, I had a beloved amethyst one for 30 years, which also happens to be my 6-year-old grandson's favourite thing.
Yeah.
I recently dropped it and it broke clearly into 2 pieces. I glued it back together with a slightly broken heart and continued using it as before. But just the other day, said grandson came over, picked it up and separated again into 2, those same 2 pieces in his hand. I would love your insights into what this amethyst is telling us here, how best to handle the situation. Now, Tim and I were talking about this and saying about basically what we've just discussed without breaking it. But my wife, Leanne, as well, who is just amazing with crystals, like so intuitive with them. She really is incredible. Ninja. And if you follow my page, she's shared a few grids that she's built, which are just amazing, and we're hoping to do a bit more of that moving forward. And she said straight away, she clocked this brilliantly, it's hers and her grandson's favourite thing, and it keeps them splitting into 2.
Right.
it just feels right to me that was one bit for each of them.
Yeah.
Because it can share its energy like that.
Yeah.
One piece could be for your grandson and one piece could be for you, and then that bonds you and your grandson together as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for Leanne for that insight on that one.
That's a powerful insight as well, because, you know, in a lot of cases we think, well, it's broken now, that's it. But two pieces, sometimes that can serve just as well as one.
Absolutely. Do you want to pick another one?
Yeah. So I take my crystals, this is from Tonya, I take my crystals outside every morning and put them on the grass to connect with the earth. Is this correct for recharging them? Tonya, yeah, that's a beautiful, thank you for that question, because that is also, we cover this in the module. Recharging a crystal, when you think of crystal, think elements, okay? Earth, air, maybe not fire, but water, or chuckle in the fire kind of thing. But any wind, rain, moonlight, sunlight, they love it, absolutely love it. So put them outside so that they can regenerate. My crystals used to ask me to go outside on a full moon. They stopped asking me to do this about 4 or 5 years ago. And I suddenly realised that the crystals that I had around me didn't need recharging anymore, because they do that every time I run a Zoom event at home. So they didn't need to go outside and receive what they were receiving. I mean, occasionally they like to go outside in the sun and do bits and pieces, but if I moved my whole army out, it would take me about an hour to move them out and an hour to move them back in again. So I tend to just find that, like, kind of, you know, the residual energies. And if you haven't got earth or wind or rain or moon at your disposal, which most of us have, use the violet flame. Give them a violet flame bath. Hold them in your hands, calling the violet flame, and just visualise your crystal being regenerated, being cleansed, purified, anything that you want.
That's it. But if you use the approach that we were discussing earlier of actually programming it so that it can't receive anything below a fifth dimensional frequency in the first place, then actually you'll find that you really don't need to cleanse your crystals very often. Charging is slightly different, and they might still want like a boost with some energy flowing into them.
We all like a boost.
We all like a boost. But the only thing I will say, there are a couple of crystals that, and not many of them, but there are a couple that don't like particular circumstances. There's one that doesn't like the moon. And
don't put selenite in water.
Yes, don't put selenite in water. Amethyst and phased in the sun.
That's an important one. Now, a lot of times over the years, we get a beautiful coloured crystal, like say an amethyst that's a really deep purple. If you leave that amethyst out in the sun on a regular basis, it's not going to retain its deep purple colour. It's going to become more lilac over a period of time, because the sun will naturally bleach those beautiful mineral infusions that have created the amethyst to go purple. So just be wary of that also. I find my favourites are moonlight and rain. Rain's a good one. Cleanse,
rain's
water,
fantastic.
Flow. When I went up to Scotland, I took my crystal skull with me to the lake and recorded my Friday update, and my skull wanted to go into the lock, so that's where it went.
I like to go to the sea.
Yeah.
You've got one close by. Yeah, they absolutely love that.
They do.
Yeah. Even just I used to before I moved recently live in a block of flats, and we're up on the 4th floor. And we had plant pots out on the balcony, and we used to, every now and then we'd have one that we needed to rest, and we would just bury them in a plant pot for a month or 2 months, however long they needed, to help charge them up. So just having that connection to the soil, whether it's physically in the ground or not, can still help.
Massively helps.
Yeah.
Massively helps. They love it, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. On to the next
what else we've got, shall we? How do I know which crystal to work with at what time? When you have several, is it okay to work with several crystals at the same time for different things? That's from Norma. Yes, absolutely. Again, come back to your intuition. You will know. Like if you have a whole shelf of them, for instance, and you go and you stare at that shelf, there will most likely be one in particular, or two, or three, or however many that are jumping out at you.
Yeah.
They, for whatever reason, it will be like they're standing out. Maybe the light's hitting them, or whatever it is. You will know intuitively. You will just see those, and work with those.
Yeah.
And then next day, do the same thing. It's kind of like dowsing, really, but you're just using your intuition. I mean, you can douse, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly viable way of doing it. But yeah, you can work with as many crystals as you want to.
Yeah, you can. You can have a house full of them, or you could have just one or two that are very close to you. There's no. Again, this is where the rule book kind of gets torn up a little bit, where you might imagine that your life will be kind of enriched by a house full of crystals. And yes, energetically it probably would be, but you wouldn't necessarily need them. You could get through your working spiritual day doing what you need to do with a piece of quartz, a crystal skull, or anything that you are drawn to. So again, use your intuition. I mean, we do kind of tend to go on what we call like crystal rampages, where it's just like, you buy one and then the rest come to join them. They do have a tendency to call a tribe to them, don't they? So if you've got one, they'll start calling other crystals to come and join them, and that of course is a very, very powerful process. And you then have a house eventually full of crystals, but it's not a necessity. Okay, you can get by with very few that you have dedicated your process to.
Yeah, and if you can't have loads of crystals, I would say the one thing to get is a single piece of quartz.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It can be a tiny little tumble like that costs you 50p or whatever.
Yeah,
that one crystal will do absolutely anything that you want to do.
Yeah,
for me, quartz or some variation of is my absolute favourite crystal.
Yeah,
because it's like a blank canvas. You can program it to do absolutely anything you want. No matter what energy that you want, you can store into it, and it's just like a perfect baseline. You can do anything you want with. So you could just have one tiny tumble, and 365 days of the year, you call in a different energy to it every single day, and
it will still cope with that.
Yeah. If you want a piece of emerald, you can call in the energy of emerald to a piece of quartz, because that's what we do. It's no different to calling in an angel. We're just calling on an energy and anchoring it into a location. Or maybe it's not even that you're saying, okay, I want to call in the energy of that crystal, but you might find a crystal Bible, open it up on a page, just say, right, guide me to what I need today. Open it up on a page, and it'll be something there, and look at the properties that whatever that crystal is good for, that stands out for you. Okay, that's resonating with me.
That's what I need.
I'll ask this piece of quartz to help me with this one thing for a day, even, and then do it again the next day.
And you can carry on like that infinitely. It's that kind of leads on to the next question, which is by Annie Marston. Thank you for this, Annie. My question is, does size matter?
Lots of people ask this.
In other words, is a chip of rose quartz as powerful, useful as a large stone, as tumbled stones as powerful as crystals in their natural states? Whether a crystal is polished or smooth makes no odds whatsoever. Again, it's your intention and your connection to that crystal which enables that powerful unity. Now, size does matter in some cases because it depends on what kind of energy work you're doing. If you're using a personal crystal, a piece of damn bright David size is incredibly adequate to do the job. But say you're out anchoring in earthwork you were doing earthwork on ley lines, or you were setting a huge field of energy, a bigger crystal will throw a wider field of energy. That's just energy dynamics, and that's what crystals do. They have a tendency to anchor big. the bigger a crystal actually is, the more capacity it has the tendency to hold. But you can still do that same job with a piece of tumble.
Yeah.
So it's all about what you are going to be using those crystals for. So size does matter, but it also doesn't. So you don't have to have a huge crystal to make you super duper effective and crystally and powerful. You can do just the same work as you would do with a big piece as you could do with a small piece. It's all relevant depending on what you are using the crystal for.
But crystals can in general create a field sort of thousands of times their size.
Yeah, they can.
So the tiniest tumble, if you were just trying to do personal energy work in your home, the tiniest tumble will likely cover a small house or something like that. If you're trying to grid a city or something vast like that, then you want something bigger.
You go larger.
Yeah, like in Atlantis, for instance, we had the Great Crystal, which was huge.
It was phenomenal.
Absolutely vast.
Yeah.
But that was holding an unbelievable vibration for basically the whole Atlantean civilization.
Yeah, an entire continent plus all of the tribes. So that was a big one. So most of the time also, if you have a crystal in your house, say it be it a tumblestone or be it a bigger, say a carving, the energies that you are connecting to at the time or are looking to connect with you from the higher realms will anchor into that crystal. And they will do that with even the smallest piece of tumblestone or the largest piece of crystal that you have lying around. As long as it is there and you've attuned it and it's activated and you're working with it, it becomes incredibly powerful.
That's it. Let's see what else we've got, shall we?
I know you wanted to touch on the next one, which is from Lizzie Jensen. The crystals that belong to the chakras, have they changed? Or have new ones arrived now that the colour of the chakras has changed through from 3D to 5D? Good question. Yeah, good question.
Essentially, if you go into a lot of crystal shops these days, they are still selling chakra packs of crystals, and they will be coloured to the colours of the old
system.
And there'll be 7 of them. So they are designated. They've essentially been programmed because they've been created for that or put together for that purpose. They are essentially programmed to work with 3D chakras. Therefore, that's the energy they are going to work on.
And we don't have 3D chakras anymore.
No, they're gone.
So they're gone.
Yeah.
And they went in 2014. So I'm always kind of a little bit, I've got a Libra moon at the end of the day, so I kind of tend to sit on the fence a little bit. But Diana Cooper is a lot more, if you're using the 3D chakra colours, you're keeping yourself in a third dimensional energy, which over a short period of time isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's also still holds those old blueprints. So we do need to be working with the expanded chakra system, because that's what we are now. It's not anything apart from simple energy dynamics. That's who we're working with now. You've got some good crystalline advice for working with the chakras, don't you, David?
Yeah, I mean, I'll come back to my quartz. Every day of the week, I'll come back to quartz. If you've got any question about what crystal to use for what, I'm going to say quartz, to be honest, every single time.
Quartz.
Yeah, quartz.
Yeah.
If you want to work with crystals specifically with the 15 chakra system, get 15 pieces of quartz and attune each one to the vibration of that chakra, or perhaps to the Archangel that assists with the development of that chakra would work nicely as well. Mark them up in some way so that you know which one's which.
Remember which one's which.
Yeah, that's it.
Or just keep them in that order.
Yeah, but you can just use quartz for them. Tim did write, I think it was actually a meditation for it. There's an article on his website if you search for, I think probably 5D chakra crystals or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. If you go into my website, www.timwild.com, I've got a meditation that I recorded when I was coming back from a workshop in, where was it? Do you know what? I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere hot. I think it was Crete or somewhere like over in that direction. And I sat there and I recorded this meditation outside this church. And each of the crystal names was attributed to each of the chakras. So if you want to find that, it's in www.timwild.com. It'll be in there. Just put Archangel Chakra Jewels. That's the one.
Yeah.
Archangel Chakra Jewels. So these are the kind of the energy of the jewels that have been associated with the fifth dimensional chakras. But as David said, you can do this with quartz. In fact, you'd probably find it a lot easier to do it with quartz because you don't have to kind of go through the process of picking. Again, that then turns into head stuff. So you just use each of the energies for the chakras with the quartz and it will align with it perfectly.
Yeah. Also, if I recall, I think a lot of the chakras on that were unobtainium.
Yeah, they were.
They were.
So it says I think it was, I got given pink diamond for the heart. You know, who's got a pink diamond? I know I haven't.
And the sapphires and emeralds and golden beryl and and
other unobtainium.
Yeah.
Unobtainium.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the bottom of the list because we're working down from our top, but let's both come from different directions,
right.
shall we? This is an interesting one. This is from Cheryl. I've read some stuff about fake crystals of late. There, and what would they be? Man-made like goldstone or heat-treated? Are they not as effective?
Sorry, can you read that again, David?
Yeah, of course. I read some information about fake crystals of late. Are there, and what would they be? Man-made like goldstone or heat-treated? Are they not as effective?
Good question.
It is a good question.
Because
there's all sorts of stuff. A lot of citrine, for instance,
has been heat-treated.
It's been heat-treated. It's basically just amethyst, and it changes colour when you heat it up. And they call it citrine, as opposed to natural citrine that is pure as it's come out of the earth.
But it doesn't look quite so fancy.
Yeah, it doesn't look quite as fancy. There's lots of things where crystals are being melted down and combined together, so they get lots of cheaper pieces, like rough little tumbles and stuff. They melt them down, combine them into something bigger. There's lots of kind of man-made obsidian type stuff, which is more like glass. There are all sorts of things. Whether you want to call them fake or not, I will leave up to you. As I said earlier, everything holds a vibration.
Everything can hold a charge. Now, I've worked with crystal skulls that are basically not crystal, they're glass. And although they weren't as responsive as a quartz skull, I still could feel a flow of energy. The quartz, the silicate, still holds a charge. So it's almost as if you have to maybe imbue your consciousness onto a man-made crystal a little bit more so than you would do if it was already actively created and conscious from the earth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, come back to your intuition. If you see a crystal and you are drawn to it, it doesn't matter whether it's man-made or what.
It's meant for you.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. You can be drawn to a piece of cedar as opposed to a piece of oak because the cedar carries an energy and you are drawn to that. It's not a crystal, it doesn't hold as much of a vibration as quartz, but it still has an energy that you can be drawn to.
Absolutely.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, it is.
And they can still be beautiful things. We're talking a lot about working with crystals on an energetic level, but quite frankly, they're gorgeous things. They're just nice to have around or nice jewelry and stuff.
Yummy.
If you're drawn to it for whatever reason,
it's meant for you.
Doesn't matter. That's this that tells us that it's not real.
Yeah.
This tells us what it does.
Absolutely. And I've just seen in the comments a lovely lady putting up that the place that I recorded the meditation was Church of the Archangels in Cyprus, in Kiti in Cyprus. Now, I don't know why I forgot that because I usually always remember it. It's because I'm trying to retrieve the information while I'm talking about something else. But yeah, so it's the Church of the Archangels, and the Archangels came through very strongly with the Chakra Crystal meditation. So
amazing.
Yeah, that's quite a visit to that church, but that's a story for another day. Okay. So I'm going to look at Margeith's question here. How can I feel the energy of the crystals in my house? I don't feel a different energy after charging my stones, so I don't know if they're working. Good question. Now, we've looked at this. We cover this in the crystal module, and we've also been discussing this at length over the years, that everybody's personal connection to a crystal will be entirely down to how you connect with it. Okay, and in many cases you might be told by a crystal book that you are supposed to feel a certain way, or you are supposed to see certain things, but this is not the case. In many cases, as David was describing his connection to his Danbrite at the start, you'd notice the subtleties of your connection to the crystal when you are using it as when you're not. So a crystal will communicate with your bodies and your fields and your heart center, your chakras, in a way that is perfect for you to understand it, but you might not be getting the answers that you want immediately. As say you were reading and opening a textbook, or you were hearing the voice of a master in your ear. A crystal will communicate on a subtle level with your subtle bodies to imbue almost a guidance or a navigation system into your system to enable you to work with it effectively. So in a lot of cases, we expect our crystals to maybe walk and talk or communicate with us, and 90% of us don't get that. I don't get that. I work with my crystals intuitively. Occasionally they pipe up and I can hear them clearly, but I feel them in my energy fields as words and instructions. And that only happens once in a blue moon. Most of the work, in fact, if not all of the work that I do with crystals, is intuitive.
Yeah.
So just follow your intuition with them.
And when you think about it, our bodies and our fields are being bombarded by energy all the time.
Yeah.
Like right now, Tim and I are sat right in each other's auras. I'm not, no disrespect, consciously feeling your energy or anything like that, even though Tim's energy actually is incredible in person. The first time I met Tim, before we started working together and everything like that, he was running a workshop at a Mind, Body, Spirit Fair run by Jackie White.
That's right, over in the New Forest.
In Lyndhurst.
Yeah.
And I went with my wife, and it was the weirdest thing because we'd never ever heard of Tim before. I'm getting slightly off topic, but we'd never heard of Tim before. And that morning, something popped up on Leanne's Facebook feed that was about you working with dragons. And she was like, oh, this is really interesting. And then we were at this fair and they announced over the tannoy, oh, Tim Wilde is starting to talk in 5 minutes. And we were like, what on earth? And so we had to go and do this. But just before we were going in, you walked through the room and both of us like double took, and we were like, what the hell is that? And this was early days in the ascension process and stuff like that. You know, I was a long way from where I am now, and I wasn't so used to such high vibrational energies. But Tim's energy is so impeccably pure that it literally craned our necks to turn just as we saw him walk through the room.
Thank you. I'll take that.
I'll take that.
But
you know, we're sitting here now. I don't necessarily feel Tim's energy. We are being bombarded by seven suns, EMFs, transmissions come through our own planet, moons, all sorts of things. My point is, we're being bombarded by energies all the time, and some of them are unbelievably high frequency. Yeah. And for the most part, we have no idea on a conscious level that it is happening. But yet we absorb these frequencies, we integrate them with us. We're constantly getting upgrades and downgrades. You know, if you look at where our vibration is now in comparison to where it was, say, the first time I saw you, for instance, my vibration has completely changed.
Mars and Venus, isn't it?
But 99% of that has been completely subconscious because it's just living life as part of this process, as opposed to me actively doing workshops and all of these different things. Just
doing the graft.
That's it. That's it. So don't worry if you don't consciously feel something for it. It doesn't mean it's not working, it's not helping you.
Always be a level of communication, and sometimes the test lies within you learning how to communicate or trust Sometimes it might just be a case of trusting that you are receiving what you are asking for. So you might have crystals that you think aren't talking to you. Well, they are, but you're on a level you aren't listening on the channel that they are speaking to you on. But that channel will be available to you. But it's a case of refining where it is and how to tune into it. Sometimes that's a bit of a test.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. This, I just saw a really interesting one here, yeah. So this is from Joanna. Once you've connected with a crystal skull, can you call it remotely for assistance if you don't have it physically with you? I feel as if mine are all synced to each other, and to me, they are very precious and good friends to have around.
I've got to show off this is the golden opportunity to show off my skull. This is Starla, who I'm tuning up at the moment. Now, that is a very good question, because if I kept this crystal skull for myself, and I say travelled to Sweden to work, this crystal would be still tuned into me at all times. Okay, it would also be tuned into the other crystal skulls that I own, and it would create a field or a network of crystal skull energy. It's called a conclave. Okay, so crystal skulls have almost like a separate field of energy or a consciousness which belongs to the crystal skulls. And yes, it will. What was the question again about?
Can you connect with it remotely?
Absolutely, you won't disconnect. There will never be a point of disconnection unless you deliberately sever that connection. That crystal skull will become bonded to you and your energy at a very high frequency, and it will also be constantly chatting with your other skulls, because if you get a group of crystal skulls together, it's a little bit like having a class of toddlers, and they talk. So, and some crystal skulls can be very, very chatty, and others can be a little bit kind of more Merlin in their communication. But generally speaking, they are all very, once they've connected in with you and you've connected in with them, that's it. Doesn't matter where you are. Your crystal skull could be in the UK, you could be in Australia. Energy does not know or recognise time on space on a physical level like we experience it. It will just be there. Okay.
That's it. There is no distance involved with energy. I used to have I think it was a Brandenburg pendant that in my early days of my big wake up, I remember you had a 12 chakra meditation on your YouTube channel years ago that was amazing, and I used to do it every day, and I'd recorded it into my pendant. So if I was out and about or anything like that at the time, I was
just activate it.
That's it. I was going to work in quite a 3D environment every single day at that time.
Yeah.
And I would do it at least 2 or 3 times a day. I would just activate it for a boost. And I remember sitting in a meeting thinking, I'd left it at home that morning, and I was sitting in this meeting thinking, I really wish I got it with me today.
I'm doomed.
That's it. But I just connected with it remotely, and I asked it to play back the recording.
Yeah.
And I felt the difference.
Yeah.
I felt the difference.
Will do. Your crystals will be with you whether you are there present with them or not. So that's how powerful the connection is. And crystal energy can be sent just as easily across the world or across a city or from house to house or from person to person. It's a case intention is what establishes the connection.
That's it. Nice. It's the exact same way that we can connect with an angel.
Yeah.
Just like that. We just have to request it and it works.
Yeah.
Crystals are exactly the same. We're just connecting with a being.
Yeah, we are. Being of light.
That's it. Okay. We're doing well.
Doing all right, aren't we?
Yeah. Kind of covered. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna. Demi has asked a few times. I've been wearing one particular clear quartz pendant while doing energy work. The crystal became quite hot to the touch and dropped off the chain. What might be happening? Am I in danger of harming the crystal? No. My crystals get really hot when I'm working with them, and heat within them is a sign that the light is moving through the crystal. And if you look at, I mean, I'm going to get a little bit technical here. If you look at this piece of quartz, this quartz exists in multiple dimensional spaces simultaneously. The physical version of it I'm holding in my hands here, and there's versions that go all the way up the dimensional ladder, right up the way to, good old number 12, very, very high frequency, pure light. And when a crystal begins to get hot, it's because the physical version of it, the molecules are moving because they are receiving energy and generating heat. And if you, on a 3D level, if you put pressure on a crystal, enough pressure, it glows, it lights up. I mean, the capacity that we have for crystal power later on in our ascension process is vast. It's science fiction to our minds at the moment. So your crystal heating up is a sign that it's working with you in harmony with the bioresonance of your body. Okay?
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim. This is a good question from Gabrielle. Is every crystal active at once, or is it needed to ask and bless it before using?
Good question.
Yeah, you had a brilliant answer for that earlier, didn't you?
Yeah. I've been working and programming and programming crystals since 2012, 2013. And now there was a point in 2014 where all of a sudden the crystals that I was receiving to work with and to program, I suddenly noticed that the process that I had to go through to activate the crystal, I no longer had to do it. It's almost like I picked the crystal up and it worked. Okay, it was conscious. It had all of the information and the energies that I wanted to put into it instantaneously. So there was a point at which we went through, and I think it was in 2014, where all of the crystals on this planet became super active. It's almost like someone flicks a light switch. We went through the first 2 years of the ascension process, and the vibration and the frequency of our planet rose so much that all of the crystals came online, and I'll say that in inverted commas. So your connection to your crystal will be very personal to you. You attune it to your energy, but your crystal is already active, it is already conscious, it's already aware of its surroundings and what it is doing with you. It's not a dead lump of rock. Okay?
Brilliant. This is a good one. This is from Yasmin. How can I anchor divine energies in crystals, and for how long do they stay inside the crystal?
Good question.
Yeah. I mean, anchoring in, we've kind of covered this a couple of times already tonight. It really is just about our intention. We just have to call on whatever energy that we want, whether it's the violet flame or an archangel or whatever, and we just ask for that energy to go into the crystal.
Yeah.
And then we ask the crystal to save that energy, to hold that vibration from now onwards, really.
Yeah.
We can certainly ask it from now onwards, depending on the circumstances. They may be able to do that indefinitely.
Yeah.
They may be able to only hold it for a set amount of time.
Good point. I mean, basically, it all depends on how much you are asking your crystal to hold. Say that you are... I've got kind of two ways that I work with crystals. The first one would be to... if I wanted to basically save myself a little bit of time in the morning, like David was saying earlier on, he programmed my 12 chakra meditation into his pendant, so he could access it whenever he wanted to. Now that program will stay in the crystal indefinitely until it's removed or it's changed or it's erased or it's cleansed, which you would have to do deliberately as keeper of the crystal. Whereas if you are anchoring in energy, say I decided I wanted to anchor in the new highest version of the gold ray of Christ that was coming in, I would do so for my crystal, but it would only hold that field for as long as I was kind of attending to it or asking it to hold that program for, because obviously the gold ray of Christ is a vast cosmic energy. you are anchoring a facet of it into a crystal and asking it to perform a action, a purpose. So it will do that purpose, and unless you keep kind of maybe going back and refreshing it, it might just decide that that's time to stop anchoring it in. But it's also worth noting, while I'm on this subject, that in many cases that if you have an active crystal in your house that you are attuned to and you are working with energies anyway, it's highly likely that you will become a focal point for beings of light that wish to connect to you and your crystal. I can remember one starry January night while I was lying. I don't know what had happened. I think I'd been woken up in the night, and I went downstairs and I was lying on my sofa in my lounge trying to get to sleep, and I had my large Atlantean Lemurian quartz with me, and I was just drifting off, and I was like, this is great. You know, I could see the stars through the window and everything, and all of a sudden it was like somebody plugged me into the mains. I lit up like a Christmas tree, and I wasn't happy about it at the time either. I was like, no, I'm just going to sleep. How can you do this to me? And I kind of was tuning in with my eyes closed, and I could see these incredibly bright points of light coming in kind of at a 45-degree angle, and I knew immediately it was the unicorns. Like literally, I was like, oh, here we go. Every year, every January for about 3 years running, they'd come in and they'd connected with me just before Imbolc, and I wasn't getting any sleep, and they linked into my crystal. It wasn't specifically me that they were linking in and anchoring to. They were anchor pointing my crystal. So your crystal will become a very attractive place for a higher being of light to anchor into, and it will happen on a regular basis whether you know it or not, sort of thing. So
amazing.
Yeah, but I actually had to tell them to knock it on the head eventually, because I hadn't slept for a couple of nights. I just felt like I'd been plugged into the mains. It's incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You can bury that one in the forest. They can.
Yeah. It's like, you're not getting me again.
Yeah. Just back on the how long do energy things, how long can they hold it as well? I was just going to say, in my old flat that I was living in, the energies there were particularly challenging.
They were.
Yeah. And one of the things I did is I have a very small but very powerful Herkimer diamond, and I asked it to maintain a field around the flat in order to protect us and to try and keep the vibration as high as possible in the home.
Yeah.
And I programmed it with a particular set of energies and gave it a particular task that I wanted it to do. And it asked me, in order to maintain that vibration, it asked me to repeat the process twice a day for 21 days. And from that, it would then be able to hold the vibration. It did need topping up every now and then, but, like once a week or something like that. Granted, it was particularly difficult energetic situation that it was in. It was working hard.
That place, wasn't it?
It was. That place was I lived inside a challenge, shall we say.
Yes.
But the act of repeating that process and ingraining that in for a period of time enabled it to then hold that energy for a much more sustained period on its own.
And it will also probably have indicated the discipline that you needed to be working with it and anchoring in as well. So
in many ways, that was kind of an exchange. I was creating a contract with that crystal. I was asking it to do a job for me, and that's what it asked of me in return. So,
fair swap.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it was a little trooper, and it did a very good job for us.
I'm just going to look quickly at this. This is a question from Mariana. I bought one of Tim's beautiful ant crystal pendants, and it fell and broke in two. Bless it. I'm sorry, this does happen, as we were talking about earlier. I kept the two halves, but should I bury them or glue them back together again? In my experience, and this is just simply by my own gut feeling, crystals don't generally tend to appreciate being glued back together. And I noticed that when I've broken an ankh in two, and I've broken a big one in two, so I've dusted more than one of them in my time. Don't you worry. Like there's quite a trail of tears behind my ankh.
An ankh graveyard.
Yeah, ankh graveyard.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Bless
Timothy was buried
God
here.
bless them all, sort of thing. And generally they once they've snapped, the energy circuit that tends to travel around, particularly the carving of an ankh, will be disrupted. It will be broken. So it's broken on purpose. So ankhs are very, very powerful protectors. Okay, they're attuned with the heart center. The ankh is the Atlantean symbol for the fifth dimensional heart center. Okay, forget what you learned in 3D about what an ankh represented. An ankh represents, it's the key to the heart. And that's how the Atlanteans used to represent it. So in many cases, we wear an ankh over our heart centers. Like I wear a gold one, so I can't break it. But if you're wearing a crystal, in many cases, that crystal's job will be to protect your heart center. Ankhs are protective. And so if they do tend to break into, and Diana Cooper had this, it's an interesting crystal story, actually. I gave Diana Cooper a very, very well programmed crystal. It's aventurine, green aventurine, and I programmed it with healing for her while she was going through her recent operation. And she said she had it for a very short period of time, felt that it was so incredibly powerful, but then it did what ankhs, all crystals sometimes do. It jumping beamed and broke on the floor. And that was because it had taken something from her that did not need to be in her bodies and her fields, and shattered. So once they've done that, take them to where they're asking to go, like by a tree, in a river, under the soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
On that note, there is kind of no minimum contract length with a crystal. If a crystal is coming with you for a particular purpose, my wife and I have had crystals that we have had for a week, and then moved them on because it came and did what it needed to do, and then they asked to go to a new keeper or something like that.
End of contract is end of contract. At the end of the day, it's the same as a relationship with a person in whatever capacity. You know, a person has a tendency to speak, sometimes honestly or dishonestly, and will say, you know, this is the end of whatever relationship we have. Well, a crystal will impart to you very powerfully, or it will do one. It will get out of here. So that tends to be how it is, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is a good one from Joe. What is the purpose of a crystal grid, and how are they created? Now, we do talk about crystal grids quite a bit in the toolkit, but I just kind of wanted to say, really, the purpose of a crystal grid is whatever you want the purpose of a crystal grid to be.
Yeah.
If you want to build one to hold the vibration in your home, you can do that. If you want to manifest something in your life, you can set your intent for the grids you can basically program the crystals of the grid with your vision for what it is that you want to manifest, and have them hold that vibration. They will amplify it, and they will hold it from then onwards, really. You know, whilst you go about your day and you're thinking about, you know, washing up and
3D
making toast and going to work and doing things and stuff like that, it can maintain that vision for you 24/7 at a very high vibration.
That's exactly it. They take a lot of the work out of that. What we're doing energetically, like, say for example, I am presenting or a talk at a hotel that I haven't been in before, and I want to make sure that the energy of the room that I'm speaking in or working in is clear. I'll make a grid within that room. I'll put a crystal at each end, north, south, east and west, and grid the space in between. I only need 4 crystals to do that, and that holds my space high, pure and clear. But as David was saying, you could make a grid at home, and then you could project the energy of that grid into your workspace. And it doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be fancy, it can just be a simple grid.
Yeah. I had that job that I was working at, saying I was working in that challenging environment.
Yeah.
What I actually did in the end was I had a set of drawers under my desk, and I got a little Tupperware pot that was maybe about that big or something like that, and I built myself a crystal grid in the Tupperware pot.
Nice.
I had a really little quartz skull in the centre, and just a few kind of tiny shards of amethyst and quartz and stuff like that, and I blue tacked each one down to the bottom of the Tupperware so I can move it around without worrying about anything. And I programmed it to set a 5D space around my desk. I was in the corner of the room, and I just basically had a little zone for me that was 5D, and I just asked it to clear anything that came into that space. So it was like a barrier around me. I could have done that at home if I wanted to, but it was quite convenient for me to do that.
If you wanted to be a little bit more ruthless about your space keeping, you could have actually gridded the whole office.
You could do. You absolutely could do.
Because you can do that, but you can also grid it under the laws of grace so that the energies don't affect people who walk through that grid field unless they're choosing to be affected on a higher self level. But you can grid buildings from top to bottom with lots of lovely energy if you choose to do so.
That's it. Should we do one more question?
Yeah, let's do
one more question. We'll see what we've got left that we've highlighted. We may have kind of reached the end of the particular ones that we thought we might have time for. Bear with us a second, just see if we can. There was a couple of questions. I can't see the particular ones here, but it gets asked quite a lot about crystals for children.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No, we needed to cover this, didn't we? Crystals for children. First of all, your child will tell you what crystal they want if you give them the option of choosing them. In my experience, they usually tend to gravitate towards rose quartz and amethyst because they are, A, they're beautiful to look at, and B, they have very soft, very divine energies. I mean, I can remember that workshop that we did, the 7 archangels, the 7 beloved archangels. And Archangel Zadkiel was actually stating in this workshop, or in the text that we were working with for the workshop, how the actual divine properties of amethyst had kind of been washed away with kind of the attitude of 3D, and it is indeed one of the most beautifully powerful and sacred stones that we can use. All of the crystals are sacred. If we're using a crystal for our ascension process, it should be regarded as highly sacred, and children recognize that vibration and they gravitate towards it. So crystals for children, if I'm asked, I will always usually say rose quartz or amethyst, because they've got that beautiful energy that is so soft and loving and safe and protective and heart-centered that you can't really go wrong with it. But again, your child might be drawn to a piece of quartz which will then adapt itself to that child's needs and energies once they've connected with it.
The advantage of rose quartz and amethyst is that they are essentially quartz at their base as well, with another mineral in them, which therefore then changes the colour of it. But they are wholly programmable as well. In particular, should we just talk this is something that we span on a bit in the toolkit, but in particular there's 2 core types of crystals, and we highlight these in the toolkit as clear and set crystals. Clear crystals, your quartzes, rose quartz, amethyst, citrine, smoky. Yeah, they are perfect for programming because they're like an open vessel. They've got lots and lots of space in them.
Very high frequency.
Very high frequency. And you can program them to do basically anything you want them to do. Something that isn't transparent, isn't clear, your labradites, lapis lazuli,
aventurine.
Loads and loads of them.
It's an infinite sea of these crystals. If you see what I mean.
They are essentially pre-programmed.
They have what you would call a base vibration, which comes with the type of crystal that they are. So, like the colour will represent that, or the mineral composition will represent that. But ultimately, what David and I are also saying in the toolkit is, don't let somebody tell you what that crystal does for you. Okay, you will have to feel into that yourself. Particularly, say you are working with labradorite, that is regarded as the stone of magic and mystery, but it might not be that for you. It might be something that helps you to sleep at night. That alchemy that it creates might be to assist you to move into the higher realms while you're sleeping and not get pestered by stuff from the astral. So that particular stone will have a personal meaning for you.
Yeah. And that reminds me, actually, someone asked a really good question that they've looked at multiple books and they have all got different descriptions for what certain crystals do.
Yeah.
What does this mean? And essentially that's what Tim's saying. Each of us will have a personal experience with a crystal, and that may influence the person that wrote it based on their experience with the energy that they got from it. That doesn't mean that necessarily one is right and one of them is wrong. It could be that both of them are correct and they've just picked up on different aspects of the same thing. There's many reasons for that, but we all have a personal experience, and that's exactly why we could walk into a room that has 1,000 pieces of lapis lazuli in it, all of them absolutely beautiful, but there'd be one in the room that is your crystal.
Winking it,
the one of them that's calling out for you, because they are all different. Just like we're all human beings, we all follow the Admin blueprint. We've got the same organs, the same amount of energy fields and stuff like that, but we are all unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crystals are exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Very good point.
That's why you've got to find the one for you.
Yes. So lovely, souls. I think it's time to... Is it magic button time?
Should we magic button time?
Magic button time. Yay.
So we're very, very excited. We really hope you've enjoyed this here tonight. There's so much more information in this latest module to the Ascension Toolkit. As I say, lots of videos and stuff like that as well to help you kind of guide through some of this stuff in a bit more information.
Good wholesome stuff.
Yeah. And let's just cover off the elephant in the room that always get asked. So I get asked this quite a lot about the Ascension Toolkit, actually, about the pricing for it, whether it's a monthly subscription service or anything like that. So the toolkit is a one-off payment per module. So that's the way we've done it. We've split these things up into individual modules. Each module has a price, and once you've bought that, that's yours. You can access that. There's no subscription, there's no monthly fees or anything like that. You get everything that you want from it. So this module, the Crystal Toolkit, is £11. It gives you lifetime access to absolutely everything.
And we will be expanding on things that we might not have included in here at this particular time whenever possible.
That's it. Yeah,
because you know what it's like. You can always think of things that, I should have put that in.
Yeah.
But for now, this has got a beautiful amount of information in it. So
that's it.
Very happy with that.
And we really hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah.
And just like, if I can see the button around my camera.
There you go.
We should be officially live. There we go.
Brilliant.
So next time you log into the Ascension Toolkit, assuming you've already signed up for it, if not, you can just create a free account which automatically gives you access to our dictionary of spiritual terms, which we have expanded upon a little bit. With this, we've added a few extra bits in just to...
There have been quite a few terms that we've been using during the writing of the toolkit that have been like, okay, that needs to be in there as well.
That's it.
Because we say it like we know what it means kind of thing, but quite often people go, well, I don't quite understand what that terminology is. So that's the beauty of the dictionary. It breaks it all down.
That's it, and we made sure as well. So if you haven't used like the first module, for instance, when you're reading through it, wherever we're mentioning these terms that you might not be familiar with, they're all linkable, so you can click on it and get a definition of that term to help you with it. Next time you log into the Ascension Toolkit, you will see working with crystals as available to purchase.
Brilliant.
Simply go through and you get instant access to it. We do hope you enjoy it.
And I've just seen the question, will this conversation that we've had tonight be included in it?
I was wondering about linking up
I think so.
to it. I think so too.
Yeah.
Include that back in.
Yeah.
It also will instantly after this be available on our YouTube channel. So if you search for the Ascension Toolkit on YouTube, the recording will be available.
And Facebook?
I think we should share it to Facebook as well.
I think on Facebook as well. So it will be everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You can access it whenever you want to.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us for this. This has been so much fun.
It's been lovely.
It really has.
It's been great. Thank you, David,
I look forward to doing this
creating this space, and thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yeah, and stay tuned. There will be more modules in the future. We haven't
be.
decided quite what the next one will be yet.
What's going in the pot next?
Yes, we will be back. Stay tuned.
We will be back.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Lots of love to you all.
So much love.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.